Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick here, dropping in on you. It's Tuesday. Hope that you've gotten your week off to a great start. I hope that you are on your way to having an unbelievably successful week. No matter where you're at right now, you're still in the fight, you're still breathing. Keep pushing forward, keep pressing, and keep believing. We're going to continue on our series, The Measure of a Man. This is going to be part 4. We've been talking about the 5 P's, principles of Black manhood. And in part 1, I told you what the 5 P's were. You have to first be a protector, then a provider, then a promoter, then a priest. Man, never underestimate the power of the male priesthood in the home. It's one of the most undervalued characteristics of manhood, and it shows in the current state of our society. Then finally, one must be a prophet, and I don't mean that in the religious sense. I mean that in the godness and divine nature of man, in the representation of God in our lives, in our beings, and our ability to speak things and establish things and to project things by way of our declarations. We are powerful enough to speak into the lives of our children. So before I get to part 4, where we're going to talk about being a promoter, which sounds a little offbeat, but you'll understand it once we get through it. Again, I want to really, truly encourage you to support the work we're doing at the Odyssey Project, the work we're doing in the community, in the building and development of young Black minds, especially young Black boys. We really need that support. We've been pushing a fundraiser now, specifically targeted fundraiser for Black men leave for over 2 months now. And we haven't even broke the surface of what we initially started out to do in a week. It's been 2 months and we haven't. We're not going to dwell on it, but I'm just saying, hey, we could use the support. And I'm going to talk to you and show you why it's so prevalent that we do this. We're going to talk about the importance of the man, not only in the home, but in the community, and how it shapes the lives of everybody in the community, not just young boys, not just young girls, but the women in the community. It's immensely important to understand the role of the man. The role of the man has been diminished so much that on one side, we don't give any value to its presence and its hard labor. But on the other side, we condemn him and blame him for everything without understanding I can't be blamed for everything unless I have the power to impact everything. And Black men, you have the power to impact everything. You can't control what everyone else does, but you do have the power to impact everything around you. And that's why so much of the weight is falling on your shoulders, is because you have the capacity to change things, but you've been told that you're insignificant. You've been told that you really don't matter. Most women who are affluent tell you right now, I don't need a man. Well, the truth of the matter is you can't not do everything you're designed to do without one. There's all those things, but we're going to get into that. But I was just on the phone with a client that I've had for a while, and we were just talking. It wasn't a session. We were just talking, and she's going through something because this past summer in July, she lost her brother. Her brother was murdered, and they initially thought it was somebody he knew, a friend or whatever, and they, were really, looking for the police. And then when it turns out to find out that he was murdered by a minor, a young Black male. And so the case is being adjudicated in juvenile court. And she was telling me, said, while I'm sitting there, Dr. Wallace, I'm looking around, and in this courtroom, there are at least 4 of the kids who are in there for murder. Then there are others in there for home invasions. And we're talking about minors. So we are not reaching our youth. We're not impacting our youth. And she was like, well, how is it down there where you're at? Because she's in Ohio, and she's asking me, how is it down here in Houston? And I'm saying it's just as bad or worse. And I was just telling about all the things that have happened over the last month or so, where juveniles are involved in extremely violent incidents where there's loss of life. And the thing is, we get to the conversation of, hey, what are we doing? And the bottom line is, you've got to be able to reach the youth. You got to understand, you got to have an impact on the youth. You can't leave young black males to figure out what manhood is. You can't leave them to figure it out. You can't leave them to try to navigate these corridors of society and expect them to really walk into effective, proper, pro-social manhood, the kind that literally provide security in the community and in the home, the kind that literally provides a covering for their families, the kind that literally sits up and sets on fire and sets ablaze the visions and the dreams and the hopes and aspirations of their wives and their children. You can't expect that to happen when there's no guidance, when there's no connectivity, when men are not literally modeling and teaching it and being present in the home. We got to understand that there's an importance in this. See, we talked about the importance of the black man to be a protector. That is the first demand on a black man. Before you get your money right, you still have the capacity to protect. That's something you don't lose. You lose your job, but you don't lose your capacity to protect. You lose your business goes under. You don't lose your ability to sit up and say, you're not going to harm anyone in my house on my watch. You're not going to harm anyone on my street on my watch. I'm going to be diligent in overseeing what I've been given charge of protecting, and I'm going to do it at the risk of my own life. That is manhood. That has to be the most driving force within a man, but that is not something that we are seeing on a great deal. And in so many young men, and in definitely these young boys, they are so self-centered and self-driven, and they are so hostile and angry and frustrated because they're trying to figure this thing out, and they don't have a blueprint because we haven't lived it for them. We haven't modeled it on a large enough scale so that they can observe it and then they can aspire to it. They're aspiring to what they see on the television. They're aspiring to what they see in the videos. They're aspiring to what they hear on the radio, what they hear when these songs come on. They don't have something to counteract or contradict a negative message that's being bombarded into their psyche and inculcated to the deepest recesses of their soul. We're going to have to get an understanding of what's out there and what's in front of us and what we have to do as men. That's why the Black Men Lead Rite of Passage Initiative is so important and so essential, because it is the proper socialization of young black males into black manhood using the most effective means possible. Number one, by modeling it. Number one, by setting the paradigm and the blueprint, and by training them and getting them in a process where they desire to be it, where they look at it as the highest height of what they possibly can be. They just want to, right now, they just want to be a dope man, a D-boy. Right now, they just want to be a player and a hustler. Right now, they just want to sit up and see how many females they can bed and how far they can stretch things outside of the natural confines and constructs of true empowerment in order to experience whatever they feel like experiencing on an individual level. There's no unity, there's no commitment, there's no collectiveness, and it's our responsibility. It's on us. That's what I want to talk to you about. We talked about being a protector. We talked about the importance of being a provider and what that entailed. Those videos are out there. You can go check them out, and I talk about them in detail. What I want to talk about now is the power of the father and the husband, which is still also an Abba or father role. It is the responsibility of Abba to be a teacher, a leader, a source of wisdom, a source of advice, a source of covering, a source of protection, a source of provision. And in that, Abba also has a role to promote. When you find a man who understands who he is, he doesn't spend a whole lot of time trying to convince everyone he's who he believes he is. He simply walks in his divine nature, and it is expressed in his behavior. If you want to see what kind of man he is, pay attention to how his wife moves when he's in her presence or when she hears his voice. Look at the countenance of his face. You can discern so much of a man's character by observing his women. And if what you can observe in her, you will observe deserve, and the respect that his children have for him, in the way that his children seek him, in the way that his children trust him. You must understand that manhood is not defined by how I feel about myself, but how I have measured myself in my expression in the way that I deal with the people who depend upon me. I don't get to decide whether I've hit the mark or not. I have to look and understand, have I touched the lives of the people that I've been given charge to cover and protect? Now, what is a promoter? A promoter is a person, is a man, a male, who, instead of using his family to elevate himself and present himself on a platform of glory, he uses his gifts and his skills and his talents. And he, what he does is he uses those things to elevate and promote those within his periphery, those within his circle. In other words, he is speaking and elevating and advancing the visions and the dreams and the aspirations of his wife. He's speaking and promoting and elevating and declaring the visions, hopes, and aspirations of his children. He is using what he has been given in way of gift and talent to sit up and create an expanded, enlarged idea of self-image in every person under his covering. He is measuring himself by how well his wife is doing. He's measuring himself by how well his children are doing. He's not looking, saying, and beating his chest saying, look at me. He's saying, you can see me by seeing them. When he's living the way that he is supposed to live, you can see him through them. That's how you live as a man, as a promoter. You've got to be promoting that. You've got to be living that. You got to understand that there is something greater. Sorry. Speaking of, this is wife. And that is the element that a lot of people don't get, because, see, there's this idea that is floating around in society where we have hyped up the idea of headship. And in hyping up the idea of headship, we have created an image of a man being on top. That, you know, a man, now the man is definitely out front. Why is he out front? Because part of being a protector is being out front. Why? Because I'm in front of you, so that everything that comes towards you has to go through me first. But I'm not on top when it comes to the different levels of how things are set up in the house. I am literally the foundation. I am the seed of life. And I am the seed of life means that I am releasing life into the world by releasing my seed into a woman who then cultivates and incubates that seed and carries it and brings it to full term. But I have released it. The moment I release it, I am now responsible for it. And how do I become in the same way of Abba responsible for the female? Because if you look at the way things play out, we love to escape traditionalism because we think we're advancing ourselves, and we sometimes miss the principles and the ideas of what is being represented, and we lose sight of the strength of the principle that in essence causes us to diminish the power and the force. Marriage is no longer what it used to be because we've lost sight of what marriage was meant to be. And so when we look at some of the old practices, we can kind of see how things work. If you look at a traditional wedding, on a traditional wedding, the groom is standing at the altar waiting on the wife, and the father of the groom is coming down the aisle. And what's happening? At this moment, you don't just have two men with an interest in a woman, you have two fathers. Because, see, if I study old ancient scripture, you'll find out that when it says that, and for this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. It never says that a woman shall, in marrying a man, leave the father. Why doesn't she leave the father? She absolutely leaves the first father, but she moves under the covering of an additional father. Now, this father is not there to lord over her. This father is there to simply provide the provision, care, and love in a different way than the original. So one father is walking her down the aisle. One is coming to give, one is coming to accept. And when a man takes the hand of his wife at the altar from her father, he is saying, I am accepting the responsibility of fulfilling everything that you have done to this point, and then taking it to an additional level to open up and release her to be everything that she can possibly be. And that's my responsibility for as long as I live. And under that, I shall promote her. I shall edify her. I shall lift her. I shall speak highly of her. I shall never be derogatory towards her in her presence or in the presence of anyone else. I am her number one promoter. See, a lot of people ain't gonna like this because we have fallen victim to the idea of a gender war in which one of us has to be right and one of us has to be wrong, and it's easier to blame someone else and point the finger than it is to look within. I am a firm believer that if I'm a man and I'm saying that I'm a powerful person and I have force and I am claiming that I am a king and I'm claiming that I am a head, I have no reason to be blaming anyone for what I am given lordship of. Now, if I'm going to be the head, then the buck stops with me. Look at any situation. Look at any CEO. Look at any head coach of any team. Look at anybody in a position of leadership. When stuff doesn't go right, who gets blamed? Who gets cut? You got a sorry team up there in Detroit. Forgive me, Detroit. Talking about football right now. How many players get cut versus how many coaches have gotten fired? Now, the team sucks. The talent isn't there. But guess what? When you come in and say, I accept the responsibility for leading this team, you're saying, I'm looking at what's out there and I believe I have the ability to make them better than what they are. And if you don't do that, you're going to be fired. Why? Because the buck stops with you. Well, the moment that you declare yourself a king, you lose the ability to blame anybody that you're supposed to have dominion and responsibility for. So that's why I'm coming at the men. It's not that I don't have something for the women. Trust me, I've got something for the women too. But see, if I'm going to say I'm a man, if I'm going to say I'm a leader, then I've got to accept the responsibility that comes along with it. I've got to accept the good and the bad. See, if things are going good, people say, man, that man's really running a good house over there. That man is really handling his business. That man is a good provider. That man's a good promoter. That man is a good protector. That man is an awesome priest. But when it's not going well, I got to be willing to understand that if I'm going to get the praise, I'm also going to get the criticism. It's just how it goes. I can't sit up and be frustrated about something that I have the ability to change. Number one is the moment I start whining about something, I surrender my sovereignty. I surrender my power. I sit up and say, that's something greater than me. That's something out there that I can't not do anything about. I am literally whining about something I have the ability to change. The problem is I've developed such an animosity towards my responsibility that the idea that I have to do something sacrificial to change something is so much harder than to sit up and just say it's their fault. Every time I see a man whining about something a woman does, I see weakness. And a lot of that weakness comes from the pain of experiencing some things at the hand of women. I get it. Don't think for a moment I don't get it. I'm not impervious. I'm not exempt. Some of the worst things that have been done to me have been done to me by a woman. But the idea that I'm going to allow that to destroy me and stop me from being what I was designed to be, or to lower my standards to behave and move in a certain way that is not conducive to the level of life that I have claimed and desire to live, it's not going to happen. I'm going to walk in the fullness. I'm going to walk in the fullness. Yeah. I'm just not looking over here. Hold on, somebody over here. I'm gonna have to block this person because they up here just dropping all this madness on this. But yeah, somebody mentioned Kingdom Man by Tony Evans. All of this I've gotten, and I'm pretty sure that Tony got a lot of it there too. I spent a lot of time studying a lot of Tony Evans, but I actually got this, and I mentioned it in the first video. I got a lot of this from Dr. Miles Monroe, who I connected with long before his demise, and I communicated with via email. I got to meet him and talk to him several times in depth, but I really followed him and read all of his stuff and emailed him and studied as much as I could to him being in two different places and him being him and me just trying to come up. But that kingdom man thing, that whole kingdom man principle, that thing there, I got it from I'm not sure where, but I mean, it's if you study from a biblical perspective, I'm pretty sure you're going to pull a lot of the same things out. A lot of respect to Tony Evans and, you know, the prayer and everything going up with everything that he's had to experience with the loss of his wife, you know, the last couple of years, but definitely an awesome person. I spent time in Dallas. It's a lot that, you know, I was able to learn while I was up there from a number of different people. He was one. Look, what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at here is you are going to have to, as a man, be willing to understand the responsibility that comes with the titles that you love to claim. You want to be a leader, you want to be the head, you want to be a king. Well, the thing is that when things aren't going well, people are looking at the king. When things aren't where they're supposed to be, and it's not because the king did something wrong. Sometimes it's because someone underneath the king did something wrong, but the king is still responsible. I've seen people go to prison for something someone underneath them did. Why? Because it was their responsibility to know. It was their responsibility to be ahead of it. It was their responsibility to correct it. And they end up catching some of the heat too. You don't get to say you're on this thing that you are a king, and yet you want to pass the buck. Now, it'd be cool and easy because, hey, man, I'm sure I can go out and find a bunch of things that women are doing wrong instead of saying, man, if women were just doing this better, it wouldn't be that bad. And then women come right back and say, man, if men were doing these things better. And then now you've got this big debate on who's screwing things up. I find it just more easier to sit up and say, you know what? I'm not going to sit up and whine about what's wrong. I'm going to do what I can, what I have the power to do to change it. Now, what I understand is there are going to be some people that are so broken, some people that are so overwhelmed, some people that have gone through so much that they just don't like men. And they're not going to ever be able to be in the space with a man and produce positively. But what I can tell you is the vast majority of people that I've come across, the people that I have counseled, the couples that I have worked with, what I can tell you is when the man starts to walk in his calling, when in his divine nature, there's something natural about the woman that starts to sink into him and rest inside of him and find that space. And then she starts to blossom and she starts to do things differently. It takes a while because you got to understand there's a bunch of women out there been filling in spaces that men were supposed to be in. And you're never going to escape that. And what kills me are the man who sits up and finds a way to blame the woman for the man not being there. No, it takes two. I blame both. I blame both. And I'm not ignorant of the history behind it. I'm not ignorant of the historical influences. I know about the influences of slavery on the black female relationship and how it's played over time. I understand the transference of multi-generational transmission of trauma. I've written books on it. I've lectured on it. I've traveled and spoke on it. I have literally designed programs to help deal with the trauma. What I'm saying is none of this stuff excuses you from the responsibility of being the person you're supposed to be. I don't get to sit up and say, because I never knew my father, which I never did, that I should be excused from being a man. No, I have to figure out how to be a man. Fortunately, I had a great grandfather who stepped in. And then when he died and when I was in early adulthood, I had to find other men who were living lives that I could look up to find them to pour into me, to be a part of it. I had to piece together what should have been automatically in my life. I had to piece it together, but I had to desire it first. See, it's too easy to sit around and be what you want to be and say what you want to be. It's easy to sit up and looking at a brother that's really handling his business and call him a simp because he's catering to the needs and the desires of his woman. What I look at is when I see a brother catering to the needs and the desires of his woman, I don't call him a simp. I look at him and then I observe her. Okay, while he's catering to her, how is she pouring into him? Because see, if she's pouring into him, she deserves everything that he's doing for her. If she's literally being what he needs her to be, he's being what she needs him to be. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, if he's sitting up pouring to her and she's absolutely got nothing for him but the fact that she's his trophy and his eye candy, and she's getting everything she wants, and she's literally a nightmare for him. She's tearing him down. She's talking crazy to him. She's doing all. Then that is a problem. And then there's something that he needs to discover about himself to understand why he's allowing that to happen. Because if he knows who he is, he will not tolerate that. And so, in other words, yes, I cater to my wife, but there's a level of respect I get from her. There's a level of the way she works with me and deals with me and does things with me and for me that sits up and says she deserves the way I treat her. Now, here's the difference. When I know who I am, anytime that I'm in a situation where a woman is not behaving the way I think she could. See, I respect all women. I walk in and say, you deserve respect until you start acting a certain way. And then this is what I do. I don't disrespect you when you get out of character of what I expect from a woman. I just remove myself from the situation. And that's at every level. There's no level where I am obligated to stay in a situation where there's disrespect. That's how I operate my life. That's how I have developed in understanding who I am. I'm not obligated to be where I'm not respected. So if I'm functioning in a certain way, it's because I'm in an environment of respect first. Ladies, you better learn how to start respecting men because it has more power than any amount of love you can muster up. He enjoys being loved, but he needs respect. And so that's something that we've got to understand. We've got to get to a point of understanding how people move. I am going to leave you on this note. Men, there's a biblical scripture, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 9, I believe. And I'm going to paraphrase it. It says that when you are not operating in the direct divine nature that you were designed to operate. In other words, you have moved outside of your design role and you are functioning in something that is not conducive to the fulfillment and the blessings and the abundance of your family. It says that the sins of the father will be visited upon the sons. Get this, the sons. For the second, third, and fourth generation. Now, what you learn from this is powerful. What you learn from this is that while the woman has the ovum or the egg, she only has it for a certain amount of time during the month, and then she passes that egg away. And then she goes through another cycle of producing another egg, and that egg is viable for a certain amount of time, 12 days, 14 days out of a month. That egg is viable. But every day of his life and every hour in that day, a man is carrying within his loins at least 4 generations. And what that means is his behaviors, while personal, are never secret on a spiritual level. Why? Because you're carrying with you your future. What you do is automatically, genetically visited upon before you're ever transferring it into a woman. It's visited upon your seed. And we're wondering why so much is happening. It's because we're living out the failures of our grandfathers and great grandfathers. And we haven't had anyone who has been willing to intervene at a level that says we have to stop it. So how do you stop it? You got to interject. You got to stop. You got to have a generation that wants to live right. Then you got to have a generation that's willing to pour into the existing generation. Then you got to hope that that generation grows up in a way of righteousness. And again, I'm not talking religion here. I'm talking in understanding how you should be operating so that your home, your community, your tribe, your village is at its height, is at its best, is in a force of growth and power. That has to be because you're living your life at the level of your design. So one of the ways that I express myself, one of the ways I present myself to the world is not through coming out in front of me and say, look at me, I'm the man. I'm doing all this at the house. I'm doing that at the house. I'm taking care of this at the house. I'm that man. I'm the man. I'm the man. I'm the man. No, the best way to present myself is to promote the people that are under my covering in a way that they blossom so that they become the expression of my well done duty. I promote them and they express me in the way they live. So when I look up, I say, I got this son and he's not there, then that's something I need to go back and I need to deal with. My sons who are in their 30s will tell you, if they want access to me, you know how kids get. Sometimes they don't want to hear it. Sometimes they don't want to be corrected. But what my kids cannot say is that when I need to talk to my dad, he won't talk to me. I only ask one thing for my kids: be respectful. You can tell me the truth. You can tell me how you feel about me. You might not like me right now. You can tell me I don't really like you right now, but you just got to be respectful. And we're going to deal with it because my ego is set aside when I'm dealing with something, when I'm trying to get something done. My ego has to set on the curb while I'm working. Why? Because my goal is not to satisfy my ego. My goal is to get good results. My goal is to set up a winning environment. My goal does not allow me to wear my feelings on my sleeve. So I can hear what you're saying to me because that's going to tell me what I need to do. See, that's the problem. So many of us are led by our egos. So many of us, we if we ain't being praised, we don't want to have anything to do with it. If we're not being big up and pat on the back, we don't want to have anything to do with it. That's one of the problems, is that we don't know how to move into an environment where someone is telling us you're not quite there. You're not really where I need you to be. I need anything. Well, if it ain't working for you, then we have become so sensitive as men that we can't function in the way we need to be because there's no room for being corrected. There's no room for someone to express dissent. We need to be able to hear from our kids. We need to be able to hear from our wives. We need to be hear from the women and the children in the community to say, hey, this is what we need from you. And be willing to sit up and say, you know what? I'm not giving that right now. That's something we need. Look, I'm going to get ready to get off of here. But I had to bring that. This is part 4 of The Measure of a Man. I'll be back tomorrow with part 5. The bottom line is it's easy to point the finger at someone else and blame someone else for what's going on. And don't think for a second, ladies, that I don't have some heat for you guys moving forward. But right now, I believe that it's important to define manhood because everybody's got an idea of what it is, and everybody's using their own idea to justify who they are and where they're at. And if it's not a universal understanding, then men can't even hold each other to the standard of manhood, because what I feel is a man isn't that. We've got to develop an understanding of what a man does. We're not talking about a male. We're talking about a man. See, whether you're a male or not is determined by your sexual origin. That's determined at birth. But becoming a man is about assuming a level of responsibility that is accompanied by a corresponding behavior. And that has to be universal. If you go into the Jewish community, they have a standard of manhood, and every Jewish boy goes through a preparational period of preparing them for manhood. And when they've reached an understanding, there's this graduation period, or there's this celebration called a bar mitzvah. And then the woman go through with the bat mitzvah, but there's a bar mitzvah. There are other rites of passages with other groups. There's an understanding of what a man is, how a man operates, how a man deals with women, how a man deals with the elderly, how a man deals with his children. What is a man? Does a man need should a man be expected to own his own? Or is a job sufficient? We need to be able to talk about these things. We need to define them so that we can hold one another accountable, so that we can have a standard by which we live, so that we can raise the level at which the collective manhood in Black America lives and operates. We can celebrate all the Black girl magic we want to. And I believe Black women are just unparalleled. We celebrate Black girl magic all we want to. We can talk about all the stuff. We can talk about how many Black women are starting businesses. We can talk about all the stuff that Black women are doing in politics. And I'm gonna tell you this: at the end of the day, we'll only get as far as Black men are able to move us. Now, Black women provide our elevation. They are the spiritual sources in ways. They are the incubators. They're the things that take things. You know, ain't nothing like the spiritual womb of a Black woman, man. You can take your dream and your vision and you can plug it into her spiritual womb, and I guarantee you, she expands it. She opens up. She creates. We don't understand the need we have for one another because we've been trained to fight one another so much that we have lost the sense of the need for us to operate as a unit, as one. And that we're paying the cost for it. We better learn how this thing works. I've said this, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm done. I've said this for years. We will only get as high as our women are able to elevate us, and we will only get as far as our men are able to physically lead us. We have to come together. We need one another. It's time to stand up. It's time to move out there. I'm challenging each and every person. Share this, study it, offer your insight and your opinion. On that note, look, I'm getting out of here. Support the work we're doing. There's a link in the description box. There's also a Cash App account. Support the work we're doing in the community, because this rite of passage initiative that I have in Black Men Lead, it needs to be a national network that's across the country so that we are universally preparing young Black males to be men. If we don't do this, we're going to lose another 2 to 3 generations. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.